What's good, everyone? Welcome back to the show Recap with Mo, where we're getting ready to get into another episode breakdown of Tyler Perry's Sistas. But before we get into this thing, make sure to like and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss shit that's going down right here, alright? So the episode we're getting ready to check into is season 6, episode number 21, titled Lose to Win. Now the synopsis for this episode states, as Gary's misdeeds collide, Sabrina's good news will have a negative effect on Maurice. Hayden confronts Fatima concerning Tamara. Michael's fate is revealed to Zac and Fatima as Karen makes a life-altering decision. Alright, so now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into this thing. Alright, so ladies and gentlemen, we kicked this episode off where we left off with Gary and Hayden outside his crib. Now, Gary in the previous episode just called out Tamara, informing Hayden that she was a plant and that she actually was brought along by Fatima's cousin, and we all know her to be Madam. And Hayden, initially it looked like he was, trying to stand up, for his wife. Like, nah, I don't believe you. Like, why are you bringing all this hateration over here when that's odd coming from a Hayden? You see what I'm saying? It's just odd to hear him talk about it that way. But anyhow, he's like, look, man, I don't believe you. Like, why do you want to bring all this negative energy over here? Because I got a good thing going on with Tamara. Gary's like, look, bro, just look at the document. Go check it out. Go. As a matter of fact, go in here and ask your wife, your so-called wife, ask her, does she know Fatima? You know what I'm saying? Now, how in the hell is that supposed to work, Gary? Like, if I'm really a plant, do you think I'm really going to answer truthfully? Like, oh yeah, I know Fatima. Yeah, she sent me over here to marry you and take all your money. Yeah, that's what she did. Like, man, it is crazy. You honestly think she's gonna go in there and tell you the truth? Like, come on, man. Anyhow, Hayden has gotten so mad, bro, that he's telling Gary, like, I think it's best that you find yourself a new tax attorney. Gary's like, for real? You gonna do this over her? Like, for real? And Hayden is looking at him like, bro, I know you're not talking about me. Like, you done bought so many women condos and cars and all types of shit. But I got a problem because I'm actually standing up for my wife, or my so-called wife. Anyhow, man, get the heck up out of here. So, of course, Gary leaves. Hayden goes in, slams the door like he about to run some shit, and then walks Tamara. Now, when Tamara comes in, she was like, hey, babe, you good? And he was like, no. As a matter of fact, I got a question to ask you. She was like, okay, what is it? So he says, well, do you know Fatima? She was like, Fatima? Like, no, I don't know no Fatima. He was like, don't mess around with me. She was like, no, babe, I don't know Fatima. Like, I could have told you this from the get-go, Hayden, that she was not going to answer your question. But anyhow, Hayden wasn't biting because Hayden is like, don't F with me. Like, I've been pretty nice to you or whatnot, but I'm not the one to be messed around with. So now he's threatening her. And she was like, okay, what do you want me to say? And he was like, do you know her or not? She was like, I've already told you no. And then not only that, she's like, oh, so you don't believe me? He was like, no, I don't. And he was like, look, if I find out that you had anything to do with Fatima and y'all set all of this up and y'all playing games with me, just know you got the right one. And I was like, okay, where is this going? So anyhow, Tamara's like, so you don't believe me for real? He was like, no. And she was like, so you gonna believe Gary and all of his, all his antics and all of this? And he was like, well, I know him. I don't know nothing about you. Hold on, wait a minute, my brother. Hold on. Let me stop real quick. See, I was with you a little bit, bro, but see, you messed up. So you sitting in here trying to clown Tamara, talking about, I know him, but I don't even know you, but you married this chick. Like, how do you look right now? And you're supposed to be Mr. Intellectual. Like, you supposed to be the smartest man in the room right now, and you looking real dumb, Hayden. I'm sorry to tell you that, my brother. But anyhow, Tamara lets him know as well, because she goes in on him as well. She was like, look, man, enough is enough. And I was like, uh-oh, here we go. So she was like, look, I got you. He was like, what you talking about? She was like, look, don't threaten me anymore. And then she calls him a little short, little whatever. And of course that hit him because he ain't. That reminded him of, what's her name? Fatima. Fatima used to call this brother out of his name as well and talk about how short he was and little scrawny and all of this stuff. So that struck a nerve right there. And then she said, I got you. Hayden is like, look, I don't even want to talk no more about it. You need to sign these damn papers. She was like, I told you I got you. Like, I got you coming and going. I was like, damn, I got you, bro. Like, I run this. As a matter of fact, I got all of this going on. And he was like, oh, so you put this together? She was like, yeah. As a matter of fact, I schemed all of this up. And he was like, Fatima didn't have nothing to do with this. She was like, no, I don't even know who that is. But all you need to know is I got you, bro. And as a matter of fact, you need to go out there and make our money. See, I know how marriage works. And now Hayden is really pissed off at this point because he was like, okay, so you must have forgot. You must have forgot I'm an attorney. She was like, no, I haven't forgot, but I also F a lot of attorneys. And they will work for me real good. And I was like, oh my goodness. Come on, Hayden. Oh, come on, Hayden. Pick your face up, my brother. Man, let me move on, man. I can stay on this scene forever. So anyhow, the next scene we see is Sabrina and Miss India. Now, Miss India is a representative for the bank, I believe. But anyhow, she informs Sabrina that she's able to come back to work. She can actually start on Monday. So she was like, ooh, that's awesome. Like, she's elated. Like, but of course, she's also worried about her friend. So, you know, she says, well, what about Maurice? Miss Indy is like, oh, wow. Yeah. I told y'all in my preview of the trailer that it was not going to go well for Maurice. And, you know, she's like, look, we're not bringing him back. And she was like, so y'all not even going to tell him? She was like, no, you can tell him. And of course, Sabrina is feeling some type of way because her friend, you know, was an innocent victim to a certain extent. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But, you know, as sad as it is that Maurice isn't going to be able to get his job back, it's what the bank is supposed to do. They're supposed to protect their assets. And for all practical purposes, you know, even with bringing Sabrina back could be, you know, an issue. But there were enough people to know that she didn't have anything or any involvement in it, but also that she did not have a direct relationship with the individual that started all of this shit to begin with. Like, she didn't do that. She actually was the one that was telling Maurice to not get involved with Q, but he never listened to her. Like, he had it all under control. So unfortunately for Maurice, the bank has to do what they have to do to protect the assets of their clients as well as their investors, right? So it is what it is at this point. So anyhow, Miss India, though, she was like, look, I'm sorry to tell you all of this. I'm saddened by it as well, but let's go ahead and grab a cup of coffee. I was like, and she done moved on. She done moved on, man. So anyhow, going on from there, we head back over to the law firm where we see Zac and Fatima. Now, Zac is stressed out right now because he's eagerly waiting to hear back from Wesley, the attorney that's handling the case for Michael, right? So, anyhow, Wesley shows up and he was like, look, how did it go? Wesley is like, look, I'm going to be honest with you, it did not go well. Now, the judge that he was talking to, you know, pretty much didn't have enough proof, and there was nothing that he could, you know, nothing he could do at this point for little Michael. Zac was like, so, you know, they didn't have enough DFCS. They also did not hear from the neighbor, and the judge didn't want to hear from the neighbor. So, of course, Zac felt some type of way about that as well. So, anyhow, what they're going to have to do is actually physically go get their own proof to be able to prove that something is actually going on over there at Heather's house for little Michael. and that's the way that they're going to have to go by doing it. So it is what it is. I'm sorry to say that, that it's not working out well for Michael and the whole situation with Zack, but we already knew it was going to be an uphill battle. Definitely with Zack and the court system, because typically the court system will side with the mother, but in this case, Heather is not a suitable, parent at this point in this situation. So, they have to do what they need to do within the legal boundaries to be able to, get this thing to be reversed. So hopefully they can figure that out. Also, you need to get another DNA test. I'm just saying that before y'all go through all of this. I'm going to leave that there. We'll talk about that later at another time. But anyhow, while Fatima is trying to calm Zack down, in walks Hayden. Now, Hayden is a little pissed off right now because old girl done schooled him back at the crib. Now he got to get his manhood back at this moment. So when he comes in, he's strolling in, and he was like, Fatima. And of course, Zack is like, who in the hell you yelling at? And he was like, no, I'm talking to her. Like, I'm talking to Fatima. So, Tamara? He was like, what? Fatima's like, what? Like, no, we don't know her. Like, what are you talking about? He was like, oh, so y'all want to play games. So y'all just want to play with people's lives and shit. So, of course, Fatima and Zack look at one another, and, of course, they got it down. What's that song? And we will build this way together, standing strong forever. Nothing's gonna stop us now. Dun, 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 dun. Man, that's my jam, man. Zack and Fatima, they're gonna hold it down. And I think Hayden knows that. But at this point, he's just mad at the world. He's mad that he feels like he's been played. He's mad of the fact that Fatima possibly did it. He's mad at Andy because Andy comes in, tells him to move, and he was like, oh, so you know about this as well? Like, Andy didn't even have anything to do with it, Hayden. Like, she's an innocent bystander on this point. Like, on this one right here, she's innocent. You know what I'm saying? Anything else, I don't know. You'll have to come back and talk about it later. But on this one, she ain't have no involvement, all right? She knew about it, but she ain't know about it, all right? So anyhow, when Hayden leaves, Andy's like, what the hell is going on? And she was like, damn. And this is Fatima talking. She was like, damn, like, I guess he knows. And of course, Andy's like, daggone, Fatima, like, you know how petty he is. Like, he ain't gonna let this go. And Fatima's like, shit, I don't even care at this point, because she's still pissed off at the whole situation with little Michael, all right? So anyhow, Jordan shows up to take Andy out to lunch. And by the way, Andy is rocking the heck out of that outfit. Anyhow, moving on so I don't get distracted. The next thing we see is Karen and Brian. Now, Brian takes Karen to the new location, or the potential, let me just say the potential new location of her hair salon. But before they got to this new location, this new potential location, this brother took her out to eat because she eating for two. Now, hold on, Brian. Like, you done brought her that one bag of clothes and toys, and now all of a sudden you taking her out to eat. Like, what are you really trying to do? Like, I know you claim to be a good dude, but what are you really trying to do? And we're going to talk about it real quick, because let me stick to the story here, and then I'm going to throw what my thoughts are about Brother Brian here. And I would love to hear your thoughts as well. But Brian takes her to this new location, and he's showing her around. This place is still a work in progress. And she was like, look, I really like it, but it looks like a whole lot of work has to be done here for this all to be finished, which, I understood what she was saying. But what Brian conveys to her is that, look, actually, it's a lot cheaper for us to just build this out instead of doing all the repairs on your current shop. And she was like, okay. So he was like, look, I can actually do this within 4 months. You're actually going to be paying the same amount in rent, and you'll actually own the building and whatnot. So instead of you just owning, that one little, part of the building, you'll actually be a landowner and a property owner at the same time, being able to lease out other parts of the building where you can actually pay for your actual rent from the people who are actually renting from you. And she was like, yeah, I like that. He was like, yeah, I think that'll be good. And then he starts to look at Karen in this type of way. And I was like, what the hell he looking at? So he was like, man, you remind me of my mother. I was like, man, get the hell up out of here. See, that's what I'm that's what I'm talking about with Brian. Like, what made you say that, my brother? And even Karen was like, well, what do you mean? And he was like, no, I didn't mean anything bad. I just, she worked 3 jobs. She just showed us what hard work would do and all of this. And I was like, okay, so you trying to get some brownie points here. Like, what we really talking about? Are you trying to sell the building or not, my brother? Like, what we trying to do? You trying to close this deal? Because you talking about meeting, letting her meet your mom, and she was talking about, yeah, I would love to meet her. Like, what we doing? We on our first date? You done took her out to lunch? Like, what we doing? Like, I want to meet your wife, my brother. Like, we have yet to see your wife. Because I'm really concerned at this point, because now you giving her all these compliments. Like, he's like, you're really attentive. You pay attention. So are you not getting enough attention at home? Is that what you conveying to Karen? Is that what you're saying, Brian? Like, y'all got all those kids at home. Like, are you saying that you need somebody to give you a little more attention? I'm just saying, I'm just throwing it out there. Anyhow, I'm a digress on that note. He asked her to call her real estate agent. Like, do you have a real estate agent? And she was like, no, I don't have a realtor. So he was like, okay, well, I know one. She was like, actually, I know one of somebody, yeah, I can call them up. So anyhow, the person that she decides to call just so happens to be Zack. Zack is on the phone with his fiance, Fatima, who's trying to calm him down, make sure that he doesn't focus on Hayden, just focus on getting home to the crib, do what he needs to do, stay calm. Anyhow, while he's on the phone with Fatima, Karen calls. And Zack sees it, and he really doesn't want to pick up the phone because he's on the phone with Fatima, and he doesn't want any issues, dealing with this back and forth. And she was like, no, go ahead and pick up the phone. Like, she's cool. Like, go ahead and pick up the phone. She's been nice. So anyhow, he was like, okay. Like, so he reluctantly clicks over, picks up the phone, and he's like, hey, what's good? She was like, hey, would you happen to know any real estate agents? He was like, yeah, I got my girl Valerie. And she was like, yeah, could you send me her contact? And he was like, that's it? She was like, yeah, pretty much. Talk to you later. So anyhow, he gets off the phone surprised as hell because there's no drama. Like, this is the good Karen right here, all right? So anyhow, when he gets back on the other line with Fatima, Fatima's like, what did she want? He was like, man, she just wanted to know if I knew a real estate agent. And she was like, that was it? He was like, yeah. And it was like, it was a little strange because she was super, super nice. And Fatima was like, see, I told you, like, she's cool right now. Like, you need to make sure you follow up with her, give her Valerie's number so, y'all can still stay cool. Definitely when it comes down to negotiating these numbers for that baby, all right? So if it's yours. Anyhow, we head over to see Sabrina and Maurice. Now, Sabrina goes over to sit down and have this one-on-one conversation with Maurice. And Sabrina is dreading this conversation. Maurice is watching television or trying to watch television. And he was like, why you all dressed up? She was like, oh, I actually had a meeting. And she goes on to tell him that she had a meeting with one of the bank representatives and that she's actually getting her job back. Maurice was like, oh, that's good. Like, that's something to celebrate. Like, I thought you were going to bring me some bad news. Don't bring that to me now. So anyhow, she was like, look, unfortunately, they're not bringing you back. Maurice's heart went to the floor. You could tell that he was totally shocked by the news. He felt as though that he was the victim in all of this. And I mean, to a certain extent, I can understand his vantage point, but realistically, Maurice, you were the one that caused all of this drama. If you would have never gotten involved with Q, and I know you can't help who you fall in love with, you can't help who you start to like or whatnot, but in this case, Maurice is dead wrong because he's feeling as though that he's the victim. But Maurice, the issue is you made an unwise decision about getting down with Q. It could have been anybody else in that bank, but you chose to bring a man into your house, and that bank has to do what's best for the bank and not for Maurice. And now Maurice is still trying to blame Q for him not being able to get his job back. Like, he wants his job back at that facility. As a matter of fact, he's talking about suing the financial institution, which, bro, like, Sabrina is telling you, like, just let it go. Like, you brought this upon yourself, and it could have been anybody, but you just made the wrong decision. And now you're finally realizing, like, I can't let the little man think for the big man. I need to think above that. And it's crazy because in this show, it seems like everybody is going through some shit. You see what I'm saying? Everybody's going through something. Gary's going through his stuff, like his ups and downs because of his decisions. Andy's going through hers, Danny, Sabrina. All of these folks are going through something because of the choices that they decided to make. You see what I'm saying? Karen is going through what she's going through with this baby due to Zack because of that 5 minutes of pleasure. You see what I'm saying? When they went in her office or whatnot, potentially. I'm just saying. You know, she's having to deal with this, potentially being a single mother because of a decision that she made. Zack is dealing with the situation with Heather because of the situation that he had with Heather at the strip club up in the VIP with $20 and a canned good up there with Heather without protection. You see what I'm saying? That he should have known, if he was thinking clearly, that that's not the best choice. So anyhow, moving on from there, man, we head over to see Jordan and Andy in this little restaurant down below her office. And, you know, I ain't gonna lie with y'all, man. It was a pretty dull scene, but I think it was needed just to fill in the gaps here for him to tell her that his sister Penelope wants to sit down and talk with her. And she was like, for what? And he was like, well, she wants to fill in the gaps due to her profession. She's a, what did he say? She's a data analyst. I think that's what he stated. So she likes everything to be aligned and everything put in order so she can figure out some things. So she wants to be able to cross out some dates on her calendar to just verify and clarify some things, right? So Andy is like, look, I'm all with her on that, but everyone is forgetting that I'm going through this shit as well. And Jordan was like, yeah, that's fair. Because truth be told, they both were in this situation together. Even though Penelope is pregnant, you know, Andy did spend a lot of time with Gary as well. So I'm going to be fair with Andy, you know, on this situation because, you know, she's hurting as well. She did spend a lot of time with him. But I'm going to leave it at that because, you know, there's some other things about Andy and Gary that I don't get down with. And the whole fact that she was with him when she knew that he had a wife, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, it is what it is, man. But, you know, we'll see where this goes. If they're going to, you know, build upon what they got. For me, it's just strange. You know what I'm saying? And maybe I'll make another video on it. But how the hell we going to have a relationship with one another when, you know, you were messing around with my sister's fiance and y'all were getting, like, how is all of this, how the family reunion going? How is all of this going to work? Anyhow, we head over to the airport where we see Danny and Tony. Now, over at the airport, Danny and Tony are having a conversation. He runs up behind her. They have a little chat. Pretty much he wants to take her out. Long story short, that's pretty much what he wants to do. He wants to get to know her better. And, you know, he asked her about working at his company because she was so bored over at her job, wasn't really busy. And she was like, no, I definitely cannot do that because the conflict of interest. He was like, oh, what conflict? She was like, well, you. Like, I will be working under you. He was like, well, I don't see anything wrong with that. She was like, well, I do. And I'm right there with Danny, like, stay where you are, because we don't know too much about Tony. But also the whole fact that she just got over this thing with Preston. And, of course, Tony is still bringing Preston up. And she was like, no, that's no more. Like, we're no longer together. So, of course, Tony's like, well, that's good to hear. So I'm definitely going to get to know you more. So, anyhow, they set a date for later on that night. Now, Danny has yet to learn from her previous experiences. Once again, she's giving another man her address. Like, meet him somewhere else. Even though you don't want to drive, meet him somewhere else. Don't give this man your address. But who am I? You know what I'm saying? And I guess Danny will have to find out the hard way. And we'll talk about that in another video due to the previews that we saw after the show. So going on from there, Sabrina calls Danny, and Sabrina tells Danny that, you know, she's going back to work on Monday. Unfortunately, they're not bringing Maurice back. Danny is hurt by that. Well, not really hurt, but she was like, well, he'll find something else. And, you know, Danny also tells Sabrina that, you know, Tony is actually going to take her out tonight. And Sabrina's like, wow, like, for real? And she was like, yeah. And she was like, so that means you are officially over Preston. And she was like, yeah, we're done. Like, that's done. And she was like, oh, okay. Well, she was like, well, you know, Rich is actually going to take me out as well. And she was like, oh, well, that's good. And she was like, well, do you want a double date? And she was like, no, he actually wants to take me out on a solo situation so we can get to know each other, even though you were the one that said that you wanted to be one-on-one. All right, first and foremost. Don't put it out there like Tony was saying it first, all right? So anyhow, while on the phone, though, Danny receives a picture message of Preston, who is now married. He's married now, right? And Danny is hurt. Like, I thought you didn't care about Preston. And we all knew that was a lie. Like, why couldn't you communicate with this brother along the way? You knew that he wanted to be married. You knew that he wanted to be settled down, but maybe you dodged the bullet as well, because if Preston is that quick to get married after he just left you, then sister, you shouldn't really be upset, but it hurt because you felt good about Preston. But you could not allow yourself to go into it with Preston because of whatever differences you had, whatever insecurities you had about yourself. There were so many things that Danny was going through that just hindered the growth of the relationship and would not allow it to move forward until she got out of the way. And when she got out of the way, he went and got married to somebody else. Man, let me move on, man, before I get in trouble. But anyhow, we head back over to the law firm where we see Andy is coming back to work and Penelope is sitting in the waiting area waiting on her to show up. Now, Andy, when she sees Penelope, she was like, what in the hell are you doing here? Penelope is like, please, like, we need to talk, like we need to work together. Essentially, that's what she's conveying to Andy. Like, we need to work together. We need to cross every T, dot every I. We really need to know what this ninja was doing. Like, I need you to give me the facts. And as we can tell from the next preview for next episode next week, like, there's some things that he is yet to convey to Penelope. And I'm going to leave it at that. But while they're talking, in walks Gary out of no damn where, talking about where y'all going. Like, y'all going somewhere? I'm like, hold up, wait a minute. I was like, bro, you just can't be popping up on this. You can't be popping up on the scene like that, man. But anyhow, that's pretty much the end of the show. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this recap. Make sure to like and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss shit snit that's going down right here. Until next time, I'll talk to y'all soon. Peace.